Hi, it's Latoya with Adreamori Hypnosis, and I'm back again today, this week's video. I was going to do something different, but this came to me last minute. But I want to talk about science versus spirituality, and I want to talk about your inner resources. We're going to get straight into it. Before starting, of course, my disclaimer is that I will be talking about God, spirituality, science, and logic. If that is not your thing, it is okay. You may choose to exit the video at this time. And as always, coming from a space of integrity and authenticity, it is my intention of this video to talk about your inner resources, kind of what it is and how it can benefit you, and the importance of being able to access your inner resource. Okay, so when we talk about spirituality, depending on your view of it, but I can hear a lot of, spirituality isn't real, it's woo-woo, you can't prove it. And I want to ask, can you prove the science in your life? Can you prove science in your life? Science takes tools, equipment, instruments that you don't have to tell you why things are. The layperson does not have this equipment at their home, and they cannot come to the same conclusions. So we are essentially trusting someone else outside of ourselves to use certain tools that we don't have access to, that we don't possess, to tell us how things work and why things are. How is this any different from maybe a tarot card reader or a crystal ball reader, right? They know how to use their tools and you don't. And what if I told you that you have your own tools? What if I told you that you have an inner resource tools that can assist you through your daily life? Because it doesn't matter what people tell you. It doesn't matter spiritually if someone says God says this and God says that, or science proves this and science proves that. If you can't make these connections on your own, inside your head, inside your house, with your family, within your body, within your life, within yourself, for yourself, then you run the risk of being taken advantage of. You and it can affect your discerning ability. So when it comes to science, I like to ask a few questions. What makes you believe that only science proves anything's existence? Are there other ways to prove something's existence? Is science and truth synonymous? So if science doesn't prove a theory for 100 years, does that mean that the theory wasn't true or did not exist or for 100 years? Does something only exist, or is it only true if science proves it? What tools, what equipment are used to scientifically prove something to be true? And what happens if a tool or equipment hasn't even been created to actually be able to measure or prove a theory? How do you categorize a theory or information that has no tools to actually measure it, to understand it, to organize it? Is this considered magic? Is it false? Is it untrue? Is it pseudoscience? Is it spirituality? How long would it take to create a tool or equipment or an instrument to study, measure, or prove a thought? What moves faster? A thought or a physical machine, a tool or instrument? What if a measuring tool is never created? Doesn't the creation of a physical tool require someone to actually think about it and then create it into the material world? Could it be true that some people are born able to tap into and connect with cosmic and universal information, and some have to wait until man proves it and then makes it law? So that it's clear, I'm not anti-science. I like science and I love spirituality. Science involves my mind, my intellect. Spirituality involves my heart. My personal definition of spirituality is phenomenon that is outside of our five senses that can be perceived by our own spirit, which is our non-physical self. Science is the studying, the organizing, the measuring, recording of spiritual phenomena, so that we can understand it by using tools to reduce it into our five senses, and which is what we consider real when it falls in our five senses. So when someone says spirituality isn't real, well, I actually agree with you, because we cannot detect it within our five senses. If we can't see it, taste it, hear it, smell it, or feel it, it's not real until a scientific tool can like I said, reduce it into our five senses so that we can perceive it that way. So my only issue with science is that it's limiting. It's not advanced enough, in my opinion. Science is not advanced enough to be able to measure and prove all that falls into the spiritual realm. It is not everything. It is not all. And this is why I don't really separate spirituality from science, because I know that science is just measuring spirituality, but spirituality is so much greater than science. There is information and there are answers all around us. Using your inner tools, your inner resources from within you can help you interpret and decipher information so that it makes sense and has meaning to you in your life, and you can apply it in your personal life. For example, like I can look at nature, and I've looked at nature and been able to get answers to questions. I once was able to stare at this tree during the winter time, and I received understanding about the cycles and the seasons of life. I understood the concept of death and rebirth better. That understanding actually helped me to learn to love and tolerate the winter season more. This is why I like to use science and spirituality, myths, religion, metaphor, and even astrology. And honestly, if I understood like sacred geometry and mathematics and a little bit more depth, I'm sure that there's a way that I can mix that into it as well. The reason I use these terms interchangeably, and I can have a topic or a subject, and I mix these things all into one, because I don't see them as separate. I can see how all of these subjects can kind of fit into one. There's like I call it an energetic signature. Things have an energetic signature, and we put language or meaning to these energetic signatures. And there's pretty much just different ways to explain these energetic signatures. For example, a language term that we would use would be like, it's an easy one. It's the death, rebirth, transformation process, right? We call it death, rebirth. We call it transformation. And nature, I see this as the winter months, going from winter and plants and animals hibernating and plants looking like they have died, just to come back during the spring and have new life. So that's that, things kind of slowing down to a stop, and then come springtime being rebirthed again, being reborn again, having new life. So that's the way that nature, I see this process taking place. Nature in the animal kingdom, you hear a lot of metaphors about the butterfly, the caterpillar going to the chrysalis and coming out a butterfly. Also, this can be used as dragonflies, and these can represent transformation as well. It's having one form, going through a process of transformation and coming out something else. This is the death, transformation, rebirth. Another example would be human life, thinking about when the body passes or when a baby is born. This is a death, and a baby being born is a new life, right? A woman in childbirth, that's a whole transformation in its own, right? A child being born. But just the woman in general, she is one person. Before she has a child, now she's a different person. She's the mother of a child. Okay. Astrology. This is why I like to mix astrology, because I can't see things separate anymore. They all kind of blend together. And this is like when we talk about Pluto energy. I talked about in another video that rules transformations. There's psychological terms and psychological concepts. And you think about maybe like traumatic experience, how you will be one way, you go through a traumatic experience, and then because of that traumatic experience, you are a different person. You can be a better person for better, or you can be a better person for worse due to a traumatic experience, right? Another one is mythology. Here, if you ever heard Inanna's descent into the underworld, she was one person, went to the underworld and went through what she went down there, and then came back another person. She could see things clearly. Life looked different from her. She was not the same person she went into. Another one is a religion. You talk about Christianity, even Jesus dying, his body form dying, and then 3 days later being resurrected into the spirit realm, right? This is the same energy. This is the energy signature that can be explained on many ways. Medical. I like this. To me, this is how I see it. Like in the hospital, if you go into the hospital, if you get sick and you have like an accident or something that causes you to go in the hospital, you go in one way. there was one way, one mental, a mental space. Your physical body is one way when you go in there, and it's a whole thing. And then when you come out, you come back differently. You either have had surgery, or you've been there long enough, and there is a transformation that happens when you're in the hospital, and you can come out for better or for worse as well. I think of agriculture, right? I'm not the best agriculture person, but I think about plants. When plants die and they wither away, dead leaves fall, and they go into the earth, and the earth can take them in, disintegrate them, and make new soil for new plants. Like, this is that same type of energy. And I think about like chemistry, how, if you're looking at one of those like chemical reactions, how it may have, there's one substance, one chemical, and there's a chemical reaction, you add something to it, or this might be slightly different, but you add heat or pressure, and then that chemical or that it was before now turns into something else based on this reaction. And metaphors. So I talked about metaphors, but metaphors is pretty much being able to use all of these different ways to explain one thing in another form. So this is why you hear the metaphor of the butterfly, because it helps your subconscious mind be able to understand energy signatures and understanding the energy of something without actually having to understand exactly the concept. And like I said, I'm not into sacred geometry and mathematics and numerology, but if I was, there would be a mathematical formula, numerology, something mathematical that can also equate to this same death, rebirth, transformation, energy signature. And so I say that to say that the answers are all around us, and the answers are inside. I consider like your inside is like the answers as well. It's more like your interpreter, a way to be able to decipher your world and be able to decipher different information. And to get to that, you have to connect with your true self. So you hear me talk about awareness of self, know thyself, your true self. You may hear terms higher self. And all of this and to me, this is like the connection to the God within you, like to be able to connect with God within you is just how I see it. That is your inner resource. This is where you go to, you retreat to. This is why you can hear meditation being such a big thing, because that's what it is going down, slowing down, becoming to a stillness, and going within yourself and becoming intimate with the deepest parts of yourself. And this is your inner resources, because when you start to have a connection, a bond with your deepest parts of yourself, then this is when you're able to use discernment. You're going to be able to see things and understand things clearly, understand things better, be able to get, if you have something that's on your mind, you can connect to your inner resource. And this is also kind of how I refer to it is your inside world, right? And so that's why like on this channel, this YouTube channel, I give so many free 99 ways to show you how to raise your vibration, how to connect with your inner self, how to get to know your inner self, how to create your reality from within you. And then with the hypnosis part, the Adreamori Hypnosis itself, what I do when I'm working with a client in hypnosis, I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling people what to do. What I'm doing is helping guide a person into a hypnotic state to create an environment for you to be able to connect with your inner self and get the answers that you need and be able to get to that space where you can use your inner resources. Like I help navigate that space, but honestly, the person who's doing all the work is you, okay? Whoever I'm working with in hypnotherapy. And again, I talked about meditation, but meditation again is another way to connect into your inner self. So right now is a great time to be doing inner work, to be able to connect to your inner work, because there is so much going on outside world that can really distract you and pull you from your inner self. Like being just pulled from your inner self so much and focusing on the outside world that you forget that you even have an inner world. Like it can make you forget that you have an inner world and pull you so far from that. I really believe that you cannot find the answers on your own, that you cannot find the answers within you, right? I personally feel that no one should know you better than you know yourself. I don't care what they say. I don't care who they are, right? No one should know your body better than you know yourself. And if that's true, if someone can know your body or know you better than you know yourself, it's just because you just pulled from your true self. I release that belief of thinking that I can't know myself and I can't make the best decision for me if I know myself, if I'm connected with my true self. No one knows me better than I do. And I know when it comes to hypnotherapy too, that hypnotherapy can seem like a fix all. Like, I'll have this issue, I'll go into hypnotherapy and I'm going to fix the issue. To me, this is from my experience and how hypnotherapy works, is that you connect with your deeper self. You use your internal resources to help guide you through whatever issue that you came in, whatever questions you have. And from that inner guidance, those using your inner tools, your inner resources, then you can now make better decisions. We can try using our external world to make decisions based on our external world, of course. When we connect with our inner self, our true self, and be able to use our inner resources, what happens is now we can be guided from our internal resources on what path and what step to take. So this is why I say I'm not going to say anyone who's doing anything outside of you, don't go see them. Don't go ask your friend to advice, because your inner resource may say, you know what, you need to reconnect with your family, or your inner resource may guide you to, being out in nature more, to work on yourself, right? This is not a decision that anyone can make but you. But the deepest, wisest parts of you can help you, guide you into these decisions. It's different for everybody. But a story I wanted to share is that many years ago, like 5-6 years ago, oh no, it's probably longer, 7, no, probably six years ago, I was obsessed with knowing the truth. Like, I wanted to know the truth of life. Like, I am a student of life, okay? I just became very hungry, very thirsty for an answer to why we are. What is the answer to life? Like, give me the secret. I want to know what it is. It was very strong. And I remember just doing so much research, so much reading. And I was, have you ever heard going down a rabbit hole? Listen, I was going down a rabbit hole. I was looking up, I was finding out so much information, but nothing ever filled that need of that thirst, of that hunger of what I was looking for. And I kept saying, I just feel like I'm looking for something and I don't even know what I'm looking for. Like, that's how it felt. It felt like I was looking for something and I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew whenever I found it, then that would be it. And so I just remember, it was a long time. It was a very long time. I was just looking and researching, and I don't know when it passed, but I can tell you to this day now, I don't have that insatiable hunger to try to find the truth of anything anymore, to dig so deeply, because I think I just wanted to know. And then my realization was that I can't know everything. It is impossible to know every freaking thing. Okay. I cannot know the universe. I cannot know exactly how God works, the way God works. I cannot know this. And there was a calming and a peace knowing that. But the peace did not come from me accepting that I did not know everything. The peace came from me realizing that the answers are all around. And that's when I realized there is no one, bam, this is a question of what is the answer to life, bam, this is the answer. I realized that there was no one answer, and that the answer was all around. So when I talk about that example of the death and rebirth, that's how I started to learn that there were many ways to get an answer than what I was looking for. And there is no way, right, that I'll ever know it all. I cannot know it all. There's no way that I cannot, and I no longer desire to know it all. And that was a beautiful thing. And one other example that I want to tie in the story is that I was at work, and I was offered an opportunity to kind of do like a higher up management, a mini management role, which is, I don't want to do that, because I consider myself a very hard worker. I work very hard, and the thought of becoming management, I felt meant like I had to work even harder. Like, not only do I have all the responsibility that I already had, now I get to multiply it by everyone else, on the floor at that time. And I was like, that sounds like heavy. I don't want that responsibility. And the person I was, sharing this, my concern with told me, and she was like, well, it's not about knowing all the answers. She said it's about knowing how to find the answer, knowing how to use your resources to get to the answer. And a light bulb went off. And that is still a message that I still tell myself today. Like, it's not about knowing the answers to everything, it's about knowing how to use your resources to get to the answer. And so, to wrap up this video, when it comes to using your inner resources, I'm passing that information on to you. It's not about knowing all the answers. So, when you feel like something in my life is happening and I need someone to tell me, so I need to know the answers, and I'm guilty of this too. I really am. I'm guilty of trying to, who can tell me the answer? And I always know when I'm trying to find the answer to something and I can't get it, it's because I'm putting too much focus and too much intention on my outside world. My inner world, there's a peace. There is a peace in that inner world, and there's always the answer, and whatever form it comes in, within me. So I pass it on to you that if you're looking for answers and you cannot find them, or you've hit a place where you don't know where to do or where to turn, you can find the answer. You know where to find the answer, and that is within. Okay, so I appreciate your time tonight. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time. I appreciate taking the time to listen to me. Until next week, you all take care.